Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how you doing, bro?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. How are you?
I'm all good, man. I'm all good, and hopefully we're back again, mate, to spread a bit more positive news or positive thoughts at the very least as we look to preview our next upcoming game against Norwich City. Now, we are recording this on the Tuesday, so in terms of injured players and stuff like that, we won't have that 100% spot on. But, you know, we're here to give you the deep dive, the preview on everything Villa really need to do to get 3 points against Dean Smith's Norwich City. But Dan, before we get into all of that, we have a message from today's video sponsors. This video is sponsored by the wonderful guys over at OneFootball. It is the place to get all of the most up-to-date football news, scores, articles, live updates. You couldn't ask for more. Dan, we use this app every single day of our lives, and they've been kind enough to sponsor us here at the Villa Filler again.
Yeah, it powers the podcast, mate. It's my go-to place for live scores, stats, and news from 200 leagues, 12 different languages. It's got the lot, mate.
So, guys, if you check out OneFootball using the link in the top of the description, it'll help us out, it'll help you guys out, and it'll help you just enjoy the game that little bit more. Be like Dan and I. Download OneFootball. So, guys, if you haven't checked out OneFootball, make sure you do so using the link in the top of the description. It helps Dan and I out more than you could ever imagine. Now, Dan, Norwich lost 3 of the last 5, 1 win, 1 draw in there. You throw in a really good away performance at Old Trafford against Manchester United in a game where they probably deserved to take a point away from Manchester, mate. It seems like it's all said and done really for Norwich. They'd have to win all of their games to stay up. If they lose this, however, if Aston Villa do manage to win, it would relegate them. So there is a lot riding on this game. And there's been a lot of talk about us getting dragged into this relegation fight. I don't really want to acknowledge too much of that chat, mate, because, you know, we try and stay positive here. But it really does feel like an important 3 points that is up for grabs for both sides, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was Opta today officially said there is a 0.00% chance that Villa get relegated. So any fears can be completely quashed at this point. I think that clean sheet, that point has got us over the safety mark. I think we're okay. However, Norwich, you're absolutely right, mate. Still have everything to play for, and until it is mathematically possible, as it could be, you can bet your bottom dollar they're going to go down swinging. This is not an easy game. It really isn't. I don't expect for a second that Villa are going to waltz through to 3 points at Villa Park. There are so many different storylines here that can make this a difficult game. You're absolutely right in that Norwich won't want to be relegated before the season is said and done. They will want to, not even necessarily, try and fight step, just prolong that as long as possible. It's a pride thing. So, they'll want to go on for as long as possible. And for Dean Smith, he will want to, more than anything, to bring his team to Villa Park and show up the guy that has replaced him. It's absolutely 100% top of his agenda to come away from Villa Park with a positive performance and with the points. So, yeah, not an easy game at all, mate. I don't think for a second that Villa are going to do this comfortably.
No, and, that's exactly it, mate. I think it's pride that's on the line, and I don't necessarily think there's anything on Gerard's behalf, that he has to beat the man who he succeeded. I think obviously he's going to look to want to get 3 points from this game, but there's certainly a lot to prove for Dean Smith and Craig Shakespeare as well, who's obviously a part of his coaching staff with him at Norwich City. It's a tough one. Norwich I don't want to say they're a bogey team, mate, but it's been a bit hit and miss over recent years, hasn't it? Obviously, we had the last laugh at Carrow Road on a Tuesday night. Jacob Ramsey just channeling his inner Steven Gerrard, really. I think it's fair to say, Dan, with that wonderful solo goal that he scored. The land kind of lies a little bit differently since then, doesn't it, mate? It really does. All the way back, who was in charge for this, actually?
That was a Stevie game, I think.
Yeah, I feel like it was
a Stevie game.
Yeah, but see, the season, man, it's all kind of merging into one at this point.
Don't even go there.
We're at that point. It's getting late, but Dean Smith will want vengeance from that alone. But I think, to be honest, mate, since Dino's come into Norwich, and I know the kind of the points on the board don't really marry up to what I'm about to say. I think he genuinely has got them playing a lot better than Farke did. I know Dean's had a fair bit of time there now. He's not necessarily got a lot to work with, and it seems like that there is actually a lot sort of boiling over behind the scenes, mate, at Norwich in regards to the hierarchy of the club and Stuart Webber, the director of football. So something doesn't seem quite right, but Dean has done rather well, really, to keep Norwich in it for as long as he has. And I think fundamentally, mate, we know exactly what we're going to see. It's going to be a 4-2-3-1. We're going to see a really narrow and compact defence from Norwich, and they're going to look to hit us on the counter-attack, and it's everything that we've essentially been used to for the past sort of 3 years while Smith was in charge. The problem is the tools that he has at his disposal, of course, are, I don't want to say significantly worse, because we are only lying 15th in the table, mate, but it's just a squad that's screaming out for investment, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, I do feel for Norwich, and their fans are pretty sick of this limbo that they're left in, where it is they're one of those clubs you can probably put about 4 or 5 different teams in this bracket, aren't you, that are too good for the Championship, but just don't quite have enough for the Premier League. I think, you can sort of put Watford in that bracket, Fulham in that bracket, maybe clubs like the Baggies and stuff like that as well. So, yeah, it's very different sort of situations for the two clubs, really, but you can take nothing away from you're right in saying that Dean has got them playing some good football. He really did pick up some good results, didn't he? When he first came in, his first few games, he won, quite famously played Southampton in back-to-back games. I think he's the first manager ever to do that in Premier League history, to play the opposition twice in a row. Obviously, he was sacked after the Southampton game, away from home with the Villa, and his first game was at home to Southampton. Complete contrasting fortunes, though. They won that game 2-1. They then got a 0-0 against Wolves, and then another draw against Newcastle, and then all of a sudden, people were sort of going, 3 games unbeaten, which is hardly groundbreaking, but for Norwich at that point, it really was. And there have been a lot of positive results throughout the season, really. They've beaten beaten Everton, they've beaten Watford, they've beaten Wolves in the Cup. They're actually the only team to score at Anfield in 2022. It's not all been doom and gloom. They have beaten the teams in and around them. They've beaten Burnley recently. So, you're looking at their running of games, and this is potentially their last chance to pick up points in the Premier League. They come to Villa Park, they then play West Ham, Leicester, Wolves and Spurs, all of whom are above Villa in the league. So, the table will tell you that this is really potentially their last chance of picking up points in the Premier League. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, mate. Dean has, he'll want to change a few things around from their last game. They lost 3-0 to Newcastle, but you're right in that 4-2-3-1 is in full effect, mate. United at last with Milot Rashica, who we famously had an announced podcast, record, thumbnail made, ready to drop, but that signing never came. So Dean Smith has finally been united with his man. He hasn't quite been the splash in the Premier League that we perhaps thought he would be when we were recording those podcasts back in the summer of last year. But yeah, it's a very interesting time for Norwich, really. They are building for the Championship already. But I think the biggest thing to discuss with this, mate, is when the Holt ends being Dean Smith, give us a wave. Is he going to wave?
Oh, I mean, are the Holt end even going to chant that, mate? I think that's another question. I think
certainly.
Yeah,
certainly. My money's on they will.
He's due a warm welcome, really, for everything he's done. I don't even think that's up for debate, really, is it, mate? But the problem with Norwich, mate, is, and I don't want to come on here and say that, when you're a Norwich or whoever that's languishing down the bottom of the table, it should be 4-4-2, Brexit ball, grind out 3 points. It's admirable that Norwich want to play the Norwich way when they come up from the Premier League, because in the Championship they piss it, mate. It's too easy for them in the Championship. It genuinely is. They'll slip up once or twice, maybe on a Tuesday night. But to see Norwich just get absolutely pummeled, mate, conceded 69 goals, only scored 22 so far this season. it does kind of beg the question, really. At what point are you, do they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? And it almost feels like that's the case for Norwich because, and I guess I understand they can't spend a lot of money. They don't have the financial backing to do so. They're more than happy to kind of take the Premier League money, parachute payments, all that kind of stuff, and yo-yo. They're existing. That's what Norwich are doing. And who am I to say that they don't have the right to exist? When you've got people like Jamie O'Hara coming on TalkSport saying that they shouldn't be allowed to come up. I think that's a load of nonsense. But at some point, like something has to give in some games, I think, mate. And I know a centre-back pairing of Christoph Zimmerman and Grant Hanley is certainly nobody's first choice pairing, but playing a high line with them two and playing this passing and expansive football, it's just not it. And you only have to look at the 3-0 loss to Newcastle in their last game, mate, and see the absolute disaster class that Tim Krul had for the Bruno Guimaraes goal. It's wonderfully taken, but it's literally put on a plate for him, and then he's one-on-one with him. It's completely shocking, and of course that isn't necessarily indicative of the style of play. That is just a mistake. But with the high line, Norwich are prone to so many balls over the top, or slicing balls through the centre back pairing. Zimmerman and Hanley aren't the most mobile of pairs, which I guess would really favour Villa at the moment, mate. Because I think it's fair to say, I think Ollie Watkins recorded 43 pressures in the Leicester game, which is the highest he is ranked in a game the whole season. So if we've got a fit and firing forward line that is, going to be on it and ready to press and really give these centre halves a difficult 90 minutes come Saturday afternoon, mate, I think, we couldn't ask for a more ideal pairing than Zimmerman and Hanley, could we?
Yeah, you make a very good point there, mate. Very good point. I think you have to force these guys into mistakes, but they're no mugs, mate. They're no mugs. They will, you saw them recently go to United. They got 2 there. United were very poor on that day. Norwich were very unlucky not to come away with something. They've gone to Man United, put 2 past United there. They've scored at Stamford Bridge, they've scored at Ellen Road, they've scored twice as Anfield this season, once in the league and in the FA Cup. So they're no stranger to going away from home and perhaps not picking up the points, but you can't just sit here and say that that it's futile. Do you know what I mean? I think you have to give these guys can go and put the ball in the back of the net away from home, but ultimately, as you say, mate, it is only so far that you can take it. And the reason they're not turning those goals into points is because, as you say, they do have these centre halves, which unfortunately probably don't stand up too well at the Premier League level. A lot of their goals this season have come through Teemu Pukki. 13 goal contributions in the Premier League. For him, that's not bad. That's a good record. You mentioned that they've only scored the 22 goals this season. So that's well over half of their goals he's been contributing to with a goal or assist this season. So obviously he's the danger man. That's more goal contributions than any Villa player has put up this season. The next closest is Danny Ings with 10 before Ollie on 9. I think we will see changes in this Villa lineup. I think, as I said, mate, it's a Buendia game written all over it for me. He's begging for a start. I think if this is obviously for reasons I don't need to go into, a perfect game for him to go and show his worth and prove against his old club exactly what he left for. I think there will be changes. I would potentially look at Tim Burnham in this game as well, mate. I think he has really impressed when he's come on as a substitute. I think it's a decent game to bed him into, perhaps. Field will stand up in this game. I think if Marv is still not quite yet back to full fitness, but and it would be strange to see him thrown in and start this game after a limited substitute appearance in the last game. Someone like Tim could be quite useful in this game, I think, mate.
I think so, and I think that wonderful little cameo from Tim does kind of almost lend itself. And I know we mentioned it on the last podcast, mate, but should Villa look to potentially change things up formation-wise? If you match Norwich with a 4-2-3-1, I think with 2 6s, I think you can maybe squeeze Tim in there. Maybe it's early, but the way that we heard Steven Gerrard speak about Tim after the game, saying he's ready and it's only a matter of time. He's proven how classy he is. All these wonderful compliments. It really does suggest that either he's blowing smoke up his arse, mate, or he thinks he's the next best thing. And I think with the way we've seen him speak about JJ and his continued involvement in the starting 11, not only just the first team, maybe Tim is that close, mate, to starting, which I think is quite exciting because, as you say, mate, I think the point the other day probably saved us. Not saved us, but I think it's guaranteed our survival. Leeds have just drawn 0-0 to Palace. That's full time there. It takes Burnley to take 6 points off us to drop Everton in it, and then Everton have to win from what is a disgusting run of fixtures, mate, to end the season for Villa to go to even be considered to be in a relegation battle, in my opinion. So I think maybe perhaps not starting Tim, but if Villa have a goal or two in this game and things are looking fairly comfortable, why not bring him on, mate? Why not? And I think, for me, what I want to see, I do want to see 4-2-3-1. I want to see Coutinho in behind Ollie Watkins. I want to see Bailey on the left. I want to see Emi on the right. I want to see Ollie up front. And I want to see goals, mate, because that is what we are capable of with that front four. I know it hasn't clicked for whatever reason, but let's get Coutinho back in his original position. We've seen Bailey play on the left before for Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. And of course, we know that Emi, he can be deployed as a 10. He can be deployed on the right. He has occasionally been deployed on the left once or twice too. But get him in his strongest position on the right-hand side, mate. And let's really take the game to them, mate, because, the fullback pairing that they played with against Newcastle, Sam Byram and Giannoulis, I think I've pronounced that correctly, abysmal. They have to be two of the worst fullbacks I think the Premier League has ever seen, mate. We have to take the game to them. We're at home, all out attack, mate. I want goals. I want to be entertained. And I think we're capable of doing it with that little diamond at the top of the pitch.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. I completely agree. I couldn't fault that lineup. I think it's a really nice way of getting the best out of the attack. And I think it's also a good way, if you want to put Tim into the side, saves him, you have the worry of him holding the base of that midfield for 90 minutes. You can give him a fellow six and a pivot so that, they can sort of share the defensive burden. So, yeah, I have absolutely no qualms with that lineup, mate. Ollie scored against Norwich as well at a trip to Carrow Road. So, yeah, there's a lot to be said for that team, mate. And I think it's about time we mixed it up. So, yeah, I completely back that, mate.
For sure. But, guys, let us know in the comment section down below what your thoughts are ahead of this game. Give us a score prediction and why not chuck us your predicted lineup in the comments as well. Make sure if you haven't, you subscribe to the channel. I think if we can get 5,500 subscribers before the end of the season, that would be quite an achievement. I think we're about 300 off. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, make sure you do so. Check out OneFootball using the top link in the description and like the video if you enjoyed. Up the Villa.